Welcome to Totality, a podcast helping you step out of your comfort zone so you can navigate the journey to discovering your true self. Here's your host, author, empowerment coach, and speaker, Sarah Moon.
Hi, my name is Sarah, and we are here with Madeline, and she and her partner, they have a business called the Dulas. And I'm so excited to have her here. She's a friend and she's an inspiration. So, Madeline, welcome. How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm so good.
Thanks for coming. I'm so excited to have you here. So, why don't you tell us what you do and how you help people?
Yes, I would love to. So, me and my business partner, Courtney, who is a divorce attorney, we are divorce doulas. And that sort of sprang from, originally we met because our daughters were friends. They met in kindergarten. And, on play dates, we would get to talking and she would kind of talk about the frustrations she had as a divorce attorney. And anyone who's been through a divorce, especially with custody, knows how hard the client attorney relationship can be, especially if you haven't really dealt with the civil or criminal court systems before. There's not a lot of etiquette out there on how to talk to attorneys, what to talk to them about, and gosh dang it, they're expensive.
You don't say.
Yeah. So we were just kind of talking, and my background is in film production, which is a lot of storytelling and a lot of creating these very putting together a lot of logistics to create this beautiful story. And I was kind of upset that there was no etiquette handbook for co-parenting, as I had been through a divorce and I was going through this massive healing journey right through my divorce happened in 2019. And then COVID hit, and then my mom passed away all within 6 months. So it was this very intense time for me. And so between talking about her frustrations as a divorce attorney and my frustrations as someone going through the family court system, we realized that there was sort of a place for more guidance. And that's how we decided to sort of join together and join these two perspectives and create the divorce doulas. And we use the word doula because it is a guide through like the physical logistic side of things, but also the emotional transformation that you go through generally in childbirth, but applying that to divorce and that transformation.
Okay. So you and your partner, how do you help the ladies? How, you know what I mean? I mean, you counsel them, you give them advice, but how do you help them see that you're helping? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we like to say, very ironically, we marry the legal logistics and the emotional transformation, because if you think about, a lot of divorce is understanding the rules and the co-parenting etiquette, because in no other legal situation are you expected to sue someone and then go to a baseball game or birthday party and be best friends. So what do you do when you have to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So helping people understand the actual legal side of things. So, okay, yeah, a judge is going to get mad if you don't pay your child support, or a judge is going to get mad even if you don't have enough money to pay. You have to tell the judge and like file something to say, I'm unemployed, I have no money, I can't pay, instead of just not paying. Or, okay, a judge isn't going to get mad if, your ex doesn't send over the winter coat. So instead of freaking out and emailing your lawyer about it, in the end, no one's going to get in trouble. No one's going to get mad. You just have to suck it up and figure it out. It'll save you hundreds of dollars because you're not emailing your lawyer every dumb thing your ex does, or you're not making mistakes that bite you in the butt, like not sending the kids over. Just there's so many things that you can do that can cause problems for your kids down the line that you don't know about, because intuitively, if you feel like a place is not safe, say, you wouldn't send your kids there. But unless you have specific kinds of evidence, you do have to send your kids there. And there's just all this stuff like that that's not intuitive. So then it's a deep practice in letting go, because like having your kids $150 winter coat just disappear and you can't get it, and you know it's at your ex's house, that can be so frustrating, especially when you're healing from an abusive situation and you're healing from all the ways that they're digging at you on a daily basis. A lot of times, I talk to women about how I think as moms, we have that voice in the back of our head saying, you're not a good mom, like you should have had lunch packed, or like you should be doing this, or you're working too much. Like we all have that voice, but when you go through an abusive divorce, that voice gets to be externalized too, and you have someone just texting you all of those things all day. So it's just, there's a lot of emotional crap to work through. And a lot of times in the context of these abusive relationships, the transition from maiden to motherhood wasn't honored. And so you're kind of having to retroactively go back and sort of go through that transition a lot of times of like honoring your motherhood, letting go of your maidenhood, stepping out of some of the like shadow sides of maidenhood to step into a more embodied motherhood, if that makes sense.
Motherhood, right?
Yeah. What did you say?
Empowered motherhood.
Yes.
Because being a mom is work, and when you're coming from an abusive situation, from a situation that you don't feel safe, if you will, and you're trying to take your kids away from the unsafe situation as well, keep them safe, that takes internal empowerment.
Oh my gosh, it takes so much, even just like willpower to again let go of the abuse, get to a point where it's not sucking you in, you can't actually step out of that abuse cycle. And yeah, honor your motherhood in a way too that I think a lot of times, because your nervous system gets so shot in abusive relationships, you get so structured and so tight and so tense, and that does kind of spill into your motherhood too, where you're like trying to parent in a very strict, overly structured, like controlling way, and you're losing your playfulness, you're losing that like soft femininity that does need to feel safe and protected to sort of come out. My cat's playing with box.
Oh.
Okay, I think you've done. But yeah, it's an interesting transition to watch women go through, where they're like, oh, I can let go, I do understand the rules, there are rules here, and when I understand them, I can put my focus on the things I want to put my focus on, which is not my dumb abusive ex, it's my kids and my future and who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So how your partner is the lawyer, she has all the laws covered. When we talked before, you also talked about the language, court language, the difference that tiny little words can make. Can you explain that?
Yes. And I'm not sure exactly what I was talking about last time, so tell me if I get too far off track. But something that has been so interesting going on this journey is that when you are a victim of abuse, you don't present very well. Like you are frantic, you are begging someone to see your point of view and to and that comes across. It's so weird because as a victim, you need to sort of develop this skill set of being very concise,
Mm-hmm.
of being very presentable and easy to digest,
Mm-hmm.
which goes against everything that you should be as a victim. And I'm not saying this is the correct way, I'm just saying it is the sort of sad reality of the way. So the words you're using and understanding the words that the court uses is very important, because Kind of a big example is a lot of people will say, oh, my ex is a narcissist, or, oh, my ex has, this personality disorder. If you go into court saying that, you're automatically going to get dismissed. They're not going to listen to you. There's just these fine lines where you want to point to patterns of abuse and know how to point to the patterns of behavior, I should say, instead of labels. And whenever you're talking to even law enforcement, DCFS, court officials, there are certain words you should avoid. There are certain words you should know how to use. And getting into court language, the difference between a motion to enforce or a protective order, and what filing either one of those means and what the ramifications are, there's so much information that you have to sort of be picking through as a victim as you're trying to put together a parent plan. Oh my gosh. And parent plans, which are the part of your decree that it's not the custody arrangement, like the kids go over Wednesdays and every other weekend, and it's not the asset allocation or the child support. It's the parts of your decree that talk about, okay, pickups are at this time, and we're going to communicate via text message or via our family wizard, and we are going to split these expenses. We're not going to split these expenses. You want to get very detailed, like you have to balance how detailed you get in that, and also while also being vague enough that you leave room for the kids to grow in the future, because you don't want to, like, if your kid is 3 and they take ballet and maybe they like ballet, say, okay, now we are both going to split Susie's ballet costs until she's 18, because what if she starts taking volleyball or any other extracurricular? But technically in your decree you just said ballet class, so then when she starts taking volleyball, one of the parents could be like, well, I'm not paying for that because it doesn't say I have to. So it gets to be, it's like this weird contract. You're locking yourself into a contract, so words matter and they're extremely important. And as someone coming out of an abusive relationship, it's very hard to gauge what boundaries to put up, because your boundaries have been pushed back so far. So you're either going to keep them too far back, or there's a tendency to overextend and try to, again, control too much and be like, and that use that overly detailed language that in the end is going to box you in some terrible way later on, if that makes sense. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I remember from visiting with you, and it's like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought of this.
It's a fascinating sort of area of women's rights that I didn't know about until I went through it. Because, I had this idea of what a struggling single mom was. And I had this idea of, kind of how the family court system works. And it was so wrong. And I think so many parents, and I think if you look at the statistics, and I know some people disagree with me on this, and that's totally fine. So many women are getting buried because they are trying to maintain stability and a good home life and stable relationships for their children, and their voices kind of just get buried by this system, which can perpetuate abuse. There's legal abuse is a very real thing.
Expand.
Well, it's interesting because so an abusive relationship, right? You're walking on eggshells. They're trying to control your every movement. You're never quite sure what's going to happen. There's kind of these hallmark signs and behaviors that you fall into and your abuser falls into. And so then when you get to the legal system, you can be like, okay, cool. Well, it takes a woman an average of 7 times to leave an abusive relationship. So once you get to the divorce finalizing part, you're kind of like, oh, cool. We're done. Great. Even if you get the divorce, you can be like, cool. But that's when they start filing. Oh, these people can file nonstop, right? They can file a modification in child support. They can file a motion to enforce, claiming that you're hard to co-parent with. And the thing about legal filings, my dad, who's an environmental lawyer, told this to me when I was young. Because when I was first starting out in film production, I was writing my own contracts, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, am I including everything there is to include about this, work for hire contract? Am I missing anything? And he's like, Madeline, honestly, the fact that you're thinking about it is fine, because in the end, anyone can sue you at any time for any reason. Someone can sue you because you parked kind of on their lawn and they got mad about it. He's seen lawsuits for all sorts of reasons. And they can get thrown out, right? But in family court, they really can sue you for any reason. They can say you're in violation of the decree because you were kind of mean to them in a text. And so you're not following the golden rule, which gets put in a lot of divorce decrees. Like we're going to follow the golden rule and treat each other as we would like to be treated. But then they file a motion to enforce, saying that you're violating the divorce decree. And then they try to take custody away. They try to modify child support. They can just file and file and file. And you have to pay your lawyer, or you have to figure out a way to represent yourself pro se to show up at all of these court dates, financially compensate yourself or your lawyer to file the responses, figure out how to file the responses on time. So they can effectively just be filing and bury you under legal paperwork. And that's what legal abuse is. And it's very hard to prove, because in the end, if you take a step back, if there were problems, if you were a drug addict, like they were claiming, or if you were, I don't know, if you were like just a terrible person and a terrible co-parent and if you were physically abusing the kids, if you were sexually abusing the kids, the court's going to want to see those filings. But they can claim all of those things with very little evidence, and the court's still trying to figure it out. I mean, the court is an adversarial system that was not built for families. Truly. So that's how legal abuse can happen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm not aware of that. We didn't visit about that last time.
It's truly fascinating.
It is. I mean, that's a lot. Because think about it. I mean, when you're ending a relationship that is abusive, you're not gonna think about, oh my gosh, I have to watch my language in court. I have to pick my battles. I have to not be dialing my lawyer or emailing my lawyer for everything, because all these things are going to cost me, and lawyers are not wallet friendly. So, I mean, it's a lot.
It is a lot. You have to do so much healing, personal healing, in such a condensed time. Otherwise, it will cost you financially, emotionally, and it will cost your kids. And in the end, I care about moms being able to show up in the best possible way for their kids, because I think that's, in the end, what creates a better world, is kids having secure attachments and kids being like growing up into good people. And yeah, it's really a fascinating environment that I'm just shocked that there's been the Netflix series made, but it's just fascinating to me that more media attention isn't brought to this. But then, because so many people are being buried by it and they can't talk about it, because you don't want to talk about your own case when you're going through stuff.
Yeah.
So it kind of just gets buried a lot of the time.
That sucks. I'm sorry. It's not fair. It's not right.
It's shocking.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is shocking. And I bet a lot of people are not aware of the stuff that abusive relationships cause, and create in the life of the spouses that are separating, in the life of the children, the court appearances, and he said, she said, kids are in the middle. It's scary. It
is terrifying. The good thing is there is hope, because some courts are moving towards becoming more trauma informed. And some courts are also moving to see coercive control as a form of abuse, which is kind of a new thing. And that does sort of identify, control. Sometimes it is vexatious litigation is what it's called, like the legal abuse. They start to see that as coercive control, or other forms of coercive control, like, controlling what you do, controlling how you treat the kids, control just that sort of looming control. So some courts are recognizing it. And I think the more healed people that are able to speak out about it, the more we'll start to see those kinds of changes. God bless.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so, because people need the help and they need solutions, and they need action and a way to move on. So I'm very glad that you and your partner are out there helping people. How can people find you?
They can find me on Instagram and TikTok. My TikTok is at Divorce Dulas. My Instagram is at the.divorce.doulas. And yeah, those are the best ways to find me. Reach out, DM me.
Okay.
Come hang out.
I am going to post the podcasts in my website. I have a website, and I'll have you text me that, and I will type it up in there, so reach you out. And thank you so much for being on this.
Oh my gosh,
this is this is our first one with an interviewing. I did another one, me explaining, and I think I did some goofs on the recording of the video, but live and learn. I have to figure this out.
It's perfect, because this is like the perfect stuff for when people to look back. One of my favorite things is once I get really into a podcast, going back to the first episode and hearing how it transforms over time. It's one of the most, it's the funnest thing. I love it. It's beautiful.
So, because I think I did something on the screen and and the visual, I haven't figured it out how to change from one person to the other. I recorded another one that will be the second one, and she helped me through it, and I'm gonna have to play with Zoom, because it's like I'm looking at the buttons down here and I'm like, it's changing the window.
I know. Well, and it doesn't look like, it's not very recording friendly, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, we'll figure things out and
get
them done. But thank you so much for all that you do to help the ladies out there and the children, and thank your partner. And we definitely will have you back, because there are other things I want to visit with you about, and we'll bring you back.
Okay, thanks so much. Have the best night.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Totality. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and share this with someone you know who may also need help navigating their journey. Until next time.